Peter, in his teachings about pernicious ways, tells us about a man by the name of Balaam. And he said that Balaam was a man who followed his own course, contrary to the very things that he knew concerning God. And here in the scripture, it talks about how that Balaam loved the wages of unrighteousness. Now here is a man who was a prophet of God. You might say he's fallen from his position because of his disobedience, but he is and has been a prophet of God. And when it came down to the time when the king Balak came to him to ask him to curse the nation of Israel as they were coming across the plains, they knew that troubled times was coming for them. And so he goes to Balaam, who is known as a prophet of God, and says, I want you to curse this multitude that's coming forth. And it says that Balaam, he loved the wages of unrighteousness, and he was willing to do it. He was willing to sell God out for a price. And that amazes me, and I'm mystified by it. But yet, we know that it happens. And way too often, those who were known as men and women of God have fallen and have done those things that appeal to the flesh because they love the wages of unrighteousness. And it breaks my heart, and I would hope and pray that it would break your heart as well. Balaam was that type of a preacher. Sold everything out for his own well-being as he saw it. But yet, when the time came for him to speak forth, he did speak the mind of God. And that amazes me. But just simply says this, is that God can use people in some of the strangest ways. Because in this story, God used a donkey to speak forth the heart and the mind of God. God knows. This is what Peter's whole point in all of this, about those who are caught up in pernicious ways and following pernicious teachings, which simply means those who would teach things that are destructive, and people who follow after these things. Peter says that God knows how to deliver them. And I think that's an amazing statement. But I will say this, God's going to use you and me, mom and dad, those who have had influence in that person's life. They are the ones that God's going to use. And God's going to raise them up and give them faith that they didn't even know they had, to pray, to bind the enemy, and proclaim that God knows how to deliver the righteous. It's Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.